Take it away.
I
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's have a roll call of the board members, please.
Anna's not here, so Fudge.
Here.
Augustinelli.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Robertson.
Here.
Racine.
Here.
And Good.
Here, thank you. All right, well, we'll start the meeting off with public comment. As you can read in the agenda, there are guidelines for our public comments, but feel free to step forward and make any comments, recognizing that we do have several items on the agenda today, which include the Copper Ridge PUD major amendment and the Cherryland Humane Society SUP major amendment, which will be having public hearings, so you can feel welcome to reserve your opportunity to make public comment until those projects are brought to the public comment period. But feel free to make a public comment now if you'd like. And seeing no one rushing to the lectern, we'll move on to review and approval of the agenda and statement of any conflicts of interest.
Make a motion, we accept the agenda as presented.
Support.
We have a motion by Fudge and support by Klein. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same. We have passed the agenda. Now we'll move on to reviewing the minutes from our November 6th, 2024 meeting.
Mr. Chair?
Mhm.
I have a comment on, toward the bottom of page 3, starting near the fourth line from the bottom. There's a sentence that starts, "Staff said that," and I think there's some words that are missing, and I just mentioned that to Mr. Syke, and he's thinking it probably should read, "Staff said that the reciprocal easement agreement or another means must be provided." Probably ought to get inserted there to show ordinance standards, etc. It was a sentence that didn't quite add up.
Staff said that the reciprocal easement agreement or
another means, and then insert after means, something to the effect of like must be provided.
And
then the rest remain as is to show ordinance standards are met,
met
et
as
cetera.
well as the parking space. I agree, that makes more sense. Any other comments?
I had one other on the next page, on the fifth line down. I think something's off in that sentence too, but I'm not sure exactly what. Talks about since other uses were out through, and something's not right there, but I'm not sure what it's supposed to be. Could it have been put through?
Yeah, I believe
Page
put
4.
through.
Change the O to a P?
Correct.
That makes sense as well. So other uses were put through and reviewed.
Those are the only comments I had.
Okay. Thank you, John. Any other comments? Would anyone like to make a motion to approve our meeting minutes?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the November 6th meeting
As amended?
As amended.
as amended. Yeah.
Support?
All right, we have a motion by Augustinelli with support by Racine. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same. All right, we've passed our meeting minutes and we can move on to correspondence.
So there's a few things on the desks. There's a packet of things related to the Two Brothers Dog Park. Agenda item 6D. Some of these were already in the packet. They had a couple things to add that they requested to be distributed to the Plan Commission. And then there's 3 emails from today regarding the Copper Ridge PUD. Folks making their comments who weren't able to be here tonight. I don't think there's anything in the packet itself. There was not.
All right. Anybody need additional time to read through the correspondence, or are we ready to move on? All right, we'll move on to reports. Molly?
Township Board. Okay, I have a couple of things. Chuck Korn was selected for the trustee spot that was vacated by Chris Barshoff when he became the manager here, and it will be a 2-year term for him.
I'm sorry,
Chuck Korn.
who's Chuck?
Yeah, who is that? It's only been here 16 years, so. Okay, then also the county board okayed the bonding for the Cherry Capital Airport. So that's moving along. And Road Commission kind of reported that they're going to start work for that roundabout that's at M22 and M72. And Gray Road from M72 will be closed from Gray Road to the bay for most of the month of January to get the infrastructure. They're going to start working on the infrastructure. So that's it.
Don't travel on my, I live on Cedar Run. Don't take Cedar Run.
Those are all going to be suggested roads to
Yes.
take, so
They're going to be very busy.
yes, they are.
Any comment from the Zoning Board of Appeals?
Yes, we had a meeting on Lake Drive. They were looking to reduce their side yard setback from the standard 10 feet to 4 feet to add a bedroom, and after a lot of discussion, it was tabled.
All right. I can report that we did have a meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission, and I actually just heard we had, is it 2 or 3 members that were reappointed?
I think 3 were reappointed.
I know
from what
that
recall.
several of us also received our reappointments via email and notification that was passed last night, correct?
Yes,
To the Planning Commission.
I didn't bring that with me.
That's okay.
You and me made it.
We were both reappointed. So then we had three Parks Commissioners that were reappointed. And we did have a meeting last Monday. We mostly just covered our agenda and discussed accomplishments from the year and outlook for next year. Did I miss anything, Steve?
The grant agreement was approved with the DNR. So the Township Board had passed a resolution to adopt that. DNR also has signed that, so we have a fully executed grant agreement, and we can move on to preparing the bid documents. With Gordy Frazier is working on that as a township engineer.
And that's for the accessible trail portion of the improvements at the Commons.
At Commons Natural Area, yes.
Very good.
Chris?
Yes.
We should mention, and I think, John, you spoke with the lady that's being appointed to this board.
Correct.
Do you remember what her name was? And
Kara,
Kara Yule?
Vera Yule
Mhm.
will be serving on the Planning Commission.
Okay. Carry with a C or
C-A-R-A, yeah.
RA.
Y-U-L-E?
E-U-L-E.
E-U-L-E. Okay.
And I actually spoke with her earlier today. She'll be being sworn in. She's coming in sometime next week to be sworn in, do all the kind of paperwork to get fully step into the board, and we'll be here for the January meeting.
Very good.
Oh.
We'll look forward to meeting her.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any reports from the Joint Planning Commission?
We meet quarterly. We haven't met for a couple of months, but as far as I know, we're on for mid-January.
end of January, yes.
End of January. And Joe McManus and I have been the Planning Commission reps on the Joint Planning Commission. Joe had to resign, of course, once he became supervisor. So hopefully one of you would be interested in serving on the Joint Planning Commission that meets, as I said, quarterly.
Actually, it's me.
Oh, it's already been determined.
Oh, very good.
Nobody told me. Welcome aboard, Molly.
Had a
Thank you.
volunteer, eh?
So no further report on the Joint Planning Commission. Probably have one by the end of January.
Okay. Very good. And what does staff have to report?
Other than the report that's in the packet, just there's been a lot of administrative reviews have been encompassing a lot of like renovations or like smaller projects on existing sites. So there's been quite a few of those. We've been working through them. It's slowed down now that snow has started to fall. I think people were trying to get them in the fall when they could, but I'm sure we'll see some of those when we get closer to spring, especially. So that's mostly what has been going on. There's other projects going on in the winter that we'll be able to work on. So.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have one curious question. In the news, it was just reported that TC Light and Power was moving towards closing, or there was a land transaction with regard to the old ash site on Cedar Run Road.
Yeah, I saw that in the Record Eagle this morning. It mentioned a developer's name. We have not received, as far as I know, any application to that effect.
No communication or anything. That's
yeah,
what I was
so-
curious about, because
yeah,
it sounded
so-
like a fairly evolved concept.
Right. Yeah. If we
Okay.
can find some contact information, might be good to follow up with them and see what their plans are. And
Look forward to finding out whether they'll have to come before us, and or certainly going to go to your review.
mm-hmm.
So, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else have any questions? All right. With that, we will move on to unfinished business, starting with PD 2024-108, Copper Ridge PUD Major Amendment, and this is for a public hearing.
Sure, so I can kind of give you an overview of the application here that was introduced last month and is scheduled for a public hearing this evening, and it's from Copper Ridge LLC. And it's looking at the plan unit development in terms of 4 primary areas that were planned for construction and build out, but have not been built out to date. And the applicant is looking for some flexibility in some of the uses. There's kind of 3 major areas to the PUD, which was approved back in 2000. There's essentially kind of a retail marketplace area that's kind of at the corner, at the southeast corner of the PUD. Then there's a series of professional office buildings, the surgery center and so forth that kind of wrap around that marketplace area. And then there's the residential areas, which include some condominiums, as well as some single-family homes that were built out to the kind of the west side of the PUD. So the applicant is looking at 4 areas. These were all 4 areas were planned as part of kind of that professional center, so they were planned for office space. They're looking at some flexibility, the potential to maybe use some of these as residential and in some cases commercial as well. So we've had a follow-up conversation with the applicant in terms of providing some direction for their some of the uses, because I think there was some concern from the Planning Commission at the introduction meeting last month about the one area that is located by the Copper Village condominiums to have some limitations on some of the commercial uses that would be potentially at that location.
Okay, I don't know if the applicant had anything they wanted to say before we open the public hearing? All right, well, with that, we will open up the podium to any of the public that would like to make comment on the Copper Ridge zoning, rezone. Well, sorry,
It's a major amendment.
major
so-
amendment, thank you.
Just so people know that this would be a recommendation ultimately from the Planning Commission, and it would have to go to the Township Board for another public hearing and approval.
Thank you, John.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Murphy, 4276 Eagle Vale. I also represent our Eagle Vale Condominium Association's board. I'm currently secretary, but in January will become the treasurer. I'm speaking for myself now, not on behalf of the board. So these are my concerns that I would like you all to consider as you consider this proposal change. There will be an increase in traffic, increase in vehicle accidents, because currently many people who visit the offices ignore the posted stop signs. I face this almost every single day. When you come in, you know, you don't have to stop. The people coming out of the office buildings are supposed to stop. About a year and a half ago, I requested that Copper Ridge add a sign under the stop sign that says incoming traffic does not stop. That has not been done yet. What additional commercial businesses will be added? What if these businesses are not successful? Are they leased? And what is the length of lease? Will the building or buildings become an eyesore and the possibility for vandalism if they become empty or leases are ended? With the increased traffic and the wear and tear on the blacktop, is the Eagles View Condominium Association going to be charged by Copper Ridge LLC a percentage to resurface the roads due to all the increase in traffic? If the newcomers coming into some of these proposals are flight nurses, doctors, staff, etc., will they need the use of a beta bus? How often? 24/7? Some doctors, nurses, and staff work 24/7. Will the beta bus circle these buildings and perhaps circle the proposed new living spaces? Are high-rise, in quotes, apartment buildings being considered? If so, how many stories high will they be? What will the rent be based upon? Current market value? Will they be leased on a vacation rental by owner, VRBO site, so that any person in the USA could sign up and rent from these apartments? Or is it just intended for medical staff and families of patients? What type of living buildings are being proposed? Will they be built of brick? Will they be mobile homes? Will they be prefabbed? We don't know any of these answers. What is the value to the residents of the Eagle Ridge owners in my subdivision? What is the value to me to approve these plans? Will my home's value or assessment decrease because of the changes to the business development? I moved to this development because the property and businesses were already established and the inclusions were known. This change is not fair to condominium owners. Voting on each part of this request, you can see on the map there are 4 requests. I would like to encourage you to vote on each ask separately, not just blanket approve all 4 of them. Traffic concerns, more vehicles, more hours a day equals more accidents. There are safety issues. Biking and skateboarding, rollerblading, all of these things do happen in that Copper Ridge area. And now if we add more people, more businesses, and the hilly topography could cause more accidents, and expanding the population into apartments or condos may create more safety calls to the police department. And we have had an increase in police calls in the last year or 2 in our subdivision. If Copper Ridge, it sounds like from when I was here last month listening to the proposal, it sounds like they want this expansion, and I can certainly ask them to reply to this. Their current buildings are not totally filled yet they want to expand further. Now, to me, that's not rational or logical. So why do we erect more buildings when some of the buildings are not filled yet? Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to make any comments? All right, with that, we'll close the public hearing.
And Chris, there was the 3 things on the desk. You want to just submit it as written record, and it needs to be read in the record, or
We haven't historically read things into the record.
they're submitted as written
Right,
comments.
so we do have an email from a Mark Plotsky, a Lauren Rippentrop, and a Kendra Mack. And all the commissioners have received those communications. So with that, I suppose we should move on to discussion of the application.
I think one thing you should understand is this is not an expansion of the PUD. This is an adjustment in terms of looking at providing some flexibility on the uses. So if Copper Ridge LLC today could go and build out these sites, they would not require this process to go through. These would be office buildings similar to building number 7 where Westfront Primary Care went in recently. That was approved when this PUD was originally done back in 2000. Now, they do have to also go through administrative site plan review. So if I use example again of building number 7, before they commenced with construction of that location there, they did require to come and make administrative site review so that we ensured that the build-out of that would conform to the zoning ordinance. Pretty minor for the most part because the footprints have already been defined. It's just a matter of meeting certain, some of the minor requirements that are in the zoning ordinance related to site planning. So, but this, the request is just to adjust and create some flexibility so that they have some options to look at these a little bit different than what was previously permitted. We feel that they generally conform to the overall spirit of what the PUD was designed as, and maybe actually become complementary to some of the other uses, for instance, like the surgery center, if they were providing apartment spaces for potential employees of that location, would be in close proximity. It kind of meets the spirit of the plan unit development from the beginning of a mixed-use development that's done and planned out. It's been constructed for the most part, with the exception of these 4 locations, but they wouldn't necessarily be adjusting or altering those locations in any way. They'd have to essentially kind of fit those footprints.
What about there was a question about the height of the structures?
Yeah, I'd have to look back at the original plan unit development on that. For the most part, they've been 2-story, let me think. Yeah, they're 2 stories on top of parking is what the office buildings have been. So I'd have to go back to the original PUD because that would be the governing document in terms of any height requirements that may have been stipulated back then.
The applicant have any comment on that?
Yeah, so the PUD does have the standards of what each of those building heights would be. Like you said, like John said, that would be the governing document that would control the building heights of the remaining 4 sites. And just like you said, again, these are 4 sites that have already been approved and are in the PUD and could be pulled to land use permits today and gone for construction. So there's no changes in the footprints, the shape, or anything to do with what was already approved in the PUD several years ago. This isn't anything that it was not planned for, and has in fact been on the plan from day one. And also in just response to maybe there be increased traffic, just keep in mind, again, these are approved already on the plan. If they're constructed as they are approved, there will be increased traffic, sure. But the good thing is as we know, if you allow residential to go into these buildings, that is actually less impact, that is less traffic. Less parking spaces are required by zoning ordinance and by a fact of just a residential component. And those are also a different offset of hours. So there will be more of would be more of a spacing out of traffic throughout that development. Was there another question? Connie, did you have one?
Safety. I'm Connie Dunawith, a managing member of Copper Ridge LLC. Safety was an issue, and Susan, I'm happy to come to your condominium association meeting and talk to you about every single one of the items that you brought up. So invite me, and we'll talk about every single one. if safety is an issue, that's paramount concern more than anything else. So the stop sign, this is the first that I've heard of it. I don't know how it was overlooked or not passed on, but we'll talk about it. We want people to be safe. And our architecture will be consistent with the entire complex. We spent 23 years trying, as a labor of love, making this as beautiful as we possibly could within financial constraints. And we think we're very, very proud of it, and we're not going to cheapen the last 4 buildings, for God's sake. So we want to continue and make it as good or better. So I don't know if anybody else had any questions specifically of me.
Any questions or concerns from the commissioners? John?
I'm not sure it's a concern. I just want to confirm. I think I had asked a question last month about any possible commercial uses in Building 10. I didn't see any issues at all with commercial in the others, but I was not so sure about that. But it was brought to our attention that the original PUD documents may already provide for that, and I just wanted to confirm that what's provided to us in our packet, that this is from the existing PUD, so commercial to some extent is already authorized.
No. So
Where
just
did
to
that
clarify,
quote come from?
so there was, Building 10 was planned for professional office, and the Copper Ridge LLC was, looking at these 4 locations, all pretty much the same in terms of the mixed use that would be considered. So it was basically the office, retail, or residential. So that comment that, in discussion that happened at the last meeting, I guess after some review, or it wasn't apparent in the condominium documents for that actually had any list of uses. So we had a conversation with, a meeting with the applicant, and we had a discussion about what might work in terms of identifying potential uses for that would be compatible with the condominium association right next door. As opposed to kind of providing a list of uses, sometimes can become more difficult. And what we're trying to do is maybe put some parameters on what would be the off-site impacts that we would want to prevent, that may be negative impacts on the adjacent residential. So we were kind of flipping that, as opposed to kind of providing a laundry list, because sometimes there might be it would result in maybe interpretation, or maybe something that, boy, it could potentially go there, would be good, but it's not on the list. So we were trying to, in discussion with the applicant, come up with some ideas, and this is kind of what was thought of and presented from them in terms of limiting the, avoiding some of the impacts that might be negative towards that residential area. So that was where it was mentioning automobile-oriented uses, so things like drive-ins and so forth would not be permitted. Anything that's outdoor of a nature, so everything would have to be within an enclosed building. And hours of operation would be limited, so it wouldn't be anything that would be open. It would be more conducive to daytime hours.
Molly?
Yeah, so this is a question for staff, just to confirm that this is not an area where there could be short-term rentals. Public comment brought that up, so I'm just confirming this particular area is not an area where short-term rentals would be allowed in Garfield Township.
Well, so they're definitely not permitted in residential areas. I mean, they could do, it's not necessarily what we think of as short-term rental, but a hotel could potentially be in one of these locations. So, I mean, that could essentially be what's over there at the retail marketplace. They probably could put something in like that today. But unless they have certain restrictions, I'd have to take a look at that regarding the short-term rentals, because there are uses that are just as impactful or similar to that would already be potentially approved or permitted on that location, because it's a commercial area, and it's not, the township's ban on short-term rentals is related to residential neighborhoods, residential areas. So in the areas that are commercial, of a commercial nature, could potentially have short-term
Could
rentals.
And John, to clarify, you're saying that you believe right now, without even this amendment, one of the options would be to turn one of the structures into a hotel, or build it and for it to be a hotel.
I wouldn't say the three that are identified as office, but potentially the one I would say that's in the retail marketplace area, because that's, it's kind of more of a broad commercial designation in there.
Molly, do you think with the finding of fact that we might move, that some clarity on that
Issue?
issue would be
Well, it
appropriate?
sounded like it was a concern, and Garfield Township is pretty careful about that. And, you know, we have like 3 areas where it's possible right now. And this one was not one of them, but maybe, in my opinion, I don't think you can write yourself out of that by a condominium document. But I guess I'm looking for staff. We can do it in findings of fact and.
Yeah, I mean, we can evaluate that and look at it a little bit further. I mean, I'm a little hesitant in some of my word choices here, because there's ultimately was what was approved under the PUD is what we have to look at, because there's the ordinance itself and the restrictions of what the township has done, but then there's also the PUD portion of this, which is kind of its own customized ordinance for this development. So we have to review that and see if there was any references to that.
And if that's already in there, and it was done before we
Yeah,
had lots of discussion about that, and then that's kind of, it's already passed and it's kind of done.
Yeah, I guess my thought on it too is that there are other uses that we are really almost similar to that, even though they're not necessarily short-term rentals. So, I mean, some of the things that they've been talking about in terms of residential options there essentially function the same thing. Like I said, you know, hotel is essentially is a short-term rental situation. So,
I guess to, continue along Molly's line of questioning, as part of the finding of fact, at least as a discussion point, it would be useful, I think, for us to make sure we're understanding if we're expanding the opportunity for short-term rentals, whether that's your desire or not, I don't know. But from the standpoint of the Planning Commission, in making this amendment, are we expanding that opportunity to more than would otherwise be allowed currently, right?
Well, except they already have the PUD.
Mhm.
The PUD has already been accepted, and it was done really prior to Garfield Township doing much enforcing on short-term rentals. And if it's already in the PUD, I don't think we're gonna go back and change that, but
No,
I
right.
don't know whether it is or not, so.
yeah, I don't know either. Most likely, I don't think it probably references anything like that, but it's just something I want to be sure of. But it's certainly in our findings of fact, and we'll review that and evaluate that and provide some guidance on that as part of the findings of fact.
Very good.
And we can also confer with the applicant as well, because I think there is the thought of providing some residential options to some of these locations, particularly I know when they're looking at like buildings 3 and 4, which are adjacent to the surgery center. I think they had kind of wanted to have the ability for like recovery type of situations for people that maybe have, having procedures done there, that type of thing. So we would have to make sure that, we have a kind of an understanding of that, and does that, qualify as a short-term rental or not? Typically, it's not, but those are uses that are similar in nature to those.
And since they are proposing a PUD amendment, I know the PUD is established, and it does have a mix of commercial and office and residential throughout the entire PUD, but if they're proposing an amendment, we can look at the impact of where they're proposing certain uses, and if there needs to be parameters around that or limitations around that, that can certainly be a consideration. When we're reviewing an amendment now, you can look at what the standards are now and take those into consideration.
For one, I guess, I have no objection to the proposed amendment as to 3/4 of those buildings. But I'm still a little concerned about the proposed building 10 that's immediately adjacent to existing residential. And if the PUD already had provided for commercial, and all they're asking for is to change that from commercial and office to commercial, office, and residential, I don't think I'd have any issue with that either. And looking at the letters of solicitation that went out because to amend a PUD, they've got to get a high percentage of the property owners to go along with it. All of the letters, in basic, what it tells them is that office space isn't in high demand, so we want to amend our PUD to add residential use to our remaining 4 lots. It doesn't talk about adding commercial use to anything. And so what was represented to these people who signed okay with the PUD changes was adding residential. And I don't have a problem, frankly, with even adding commercial to those other 3 buildings, but I do have some issues with it going in and building 10. And I can appreciate, as staff mentioned, that language that's there. It may be easier to try to rule certain things out rather than come up with a laundry list of what's okay. But I guess there may be certain things of a commercial nature that would fit in okay there, but I'd feel a lot better if there had to be some further review and we and the public had an opportunity to weigh in on that rather than just a carte blanche, anything that doesn't do X, Y, or Z is okay.
Any further comments? Joe, Pat, Bob?
All set.
I agree with John on the restriction on that 10.
So you're both thinking that adding commercial to 10 would be undesirable?
Correct.
It's my initial thought.
But residential's fine, it's residential already.
Okay. You guys have any further comments?
Lot number 10 already is approved for commercial. However, because it's up against residential, it's not going to be conducive to do anything super commercial, something like maybe a gym, but that could be a little bit loud. What we thought would be more appropriate there, and we've designed a couple buildings for, is an adult foster care or a recovery apartments. Now, apartments are somewhere between commercial and residential, but recovery, where you'd stay for a week. So they're more like, Molly was saying, more like,
It's a short-term rental.
Short-term rental.
But it may not be termed that. I mean, this is kind of a medical use. It's something a little different than what you would think about as somebody who's going to the Cherry Festival and wants to come and party. You're going to be in recovery. It's a different kind of a...
Yeah, that would never fly in the same building, yeah.
Connie, can you clarify? You just said that building 10 is approved for commercial, and that's what I was
Yeah.
trying to ask all along, but
It is. It's office retail. It's a combo, it labeled
that's
as
it, that's
office
in the
retail.
PUD. That's what I was wondering, but
I thought it was just office on,
No, office is an unusual combination labeled office retail because we did that specifically in the original PUD so we could have signage all the way around it. And the other office buildings don't have a lot of signage all the way around. But that, we thought maybe that would be, could be a pharmacy, it could be durable medical equipment sales, something that needed more signage.
so you're saying that it already allows, the PUD already allows
Yeah.
those uses in 10. All you're really asking for now is to add residential to the
Yeah,
mix.
yes, to
I don't
downgrade
have a
it.
problem with that, if that's the case.
Yeah.
John?
And we've had zero luck selling any office space. Nobody wants a pad for 30,000 square feet anymore. But we have to keep paying property taxes, so we've put $10,000 a year per pad for 20 years, and it's getting old. We're trying to convert it to something that the market wants. It was impossible 20 years ago to figure out what would go where, so, and when it would go. So,
Okay. Anyone else?
I'd make the motion to direct staff to prepare findings of fact for application SUP 2000 -08 -0 for consideration at the January 8th, 2025 regular meeting of the Planning Commission, subject to amend the proposed uses within the Copper Ridge planned unit development.
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Agustinelli and support by Klein. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same.
And again, there's going to be opportunities. We're just doing the findings of fact now.
Yes. Mhm.
We'll get more information when we have those, and then it goes to the,
Goes to the town, you'll be
Town board.
making a recommendation to the town board, and then there'll be another public hearing at the town
at
board
the
level.
town board.
And you review the findings of fact. If you want us to find additional information, you
The
can
next
always
meeting.
table it and have us amend the findings of fact.
John?
First, can I just make one request to staff? By the time we're looking at the findings of fact, can staff have reviewed the PUD? And I have all kinds of confidence in what Connie just told us, but I would love staff to look at the PUD
Absolutely.
documents and tell us what's currently allowed in Building 10.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been some questions for clarification that you've heard, and you'll bring those to us with the findings of fact. All right. Well, before we move on, I did think I saw someone maybe step up to make comment. There's an opportunity for additional public comment at the end of the meeting, or certainly at any of our next meetings as well. So with that, we'll move on to PD 2024-109, Cherryland Humane Society, SUP Major Amendment, Public Hearing. Why don't you, Steve or John, which one of you is going to start us
Yeah,
off on that one?
Steve's going to cover this one here.
On that. I might actually wait a second as people clear out. And the woman who spoke at the public comment provided notes I think she was speaking off of, but we can provide, and we can submit those in the record for written comment, additional written comment.
Very good, thank you, Steve.
Yep. Make sure I keep that with the written comments for Copperidge PUD. Okay.
All right.
All right, now we're ready. So this is the Cherry Lane Humane Society at 1750 Alberg Drive, an existing structure. They're looking to do a building expansion. You saw the introduction of this at the previous meeting after staff had worked with the applicant to clarify a couple issues before bringing it to the Planning Commission. Mostly, I would actually say at the last meeting, there was just quite a few items related to just the site plan and kind of submitted materials that needed some clarification. And thankfully, representative of the applicant was here and answered a lot of those in person. And then in the resubmitted documents, I was able to take care of, I think, pretty much everything that we had discussed. So a lot of those things were clarified, at least from staff's view. And as the public hearing, we wanted to see what additional comments came forth at this time. But I think from staff's perspective, we got what we were looking for from the last meeting.
Do you want to give us a quick rundown, Steve, on the things that were clarified?
I think the biggest things were, and I can go to the kind of the main site plan drawing, it'd be labeled C1. The biggest one that we learned, it was a drafting error, making sure that the building was within the setback, because that was one of the things clarified before we brought it to Planning Commission. So that was clarified. Just a few other just kind of errors noted on the plan were corrected. Landscaping adjusted, so it was out of the area of that they needed to do a right-of-way easement for extending Alberg Drive, because that was part of determining that could count as the front yard. And that's kind of where it faces. Since this is at the end of a no outlet road, it is kind of interestingly placed into how can you count the front, determining where it has access from. I mean, despite facing Hammond Road, it does not and cannot have access from Hammond Road. So that was determined, but then also to keep new landscaping out of that. They also added some snow storage, and it seems like it better connects and is clear on how that would most likely actually be used for snow storage. I think those were the biggest things.
And I was curious about the snow storage, because as I recall,
Yeah.
I had a concern about the dumpster being in front of the snow storage area that would be to the west of the new building.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave you some confidence that they would have the ability to plow snow to that location?
So what they did was they added some beyond, I think, what was required, and at least in our view, that looks like where it would most likely make sense to do it first, because it's right next to the parking lot, but they would have the ability to kind of push it off of that and into the direction, and it might actually, since some of the snow storage was shown in the retention area, that's more how, as it melts anyway, is going to end up in the low point going that direction, but it seemed to at least make more sense. The first area where it's going to be pushed has been identified.
So it's just beyond those new parking stalls, so they'll
Yeah.
push it right due west.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, due west, so. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did any other commissioners have any?
Don't we have a public hearing?
We do, I had asked a
Yeah, before we
question,
do
I
the
wanna
public
make sure
hearing,
that
yeah,
anybody
any other
else-
questions for us?
All right, then with that, shall we open the public hearing? Anybody who has any comments or concerns, feel free to step to the podium, state your name and address, and make your comment. Well, with that, we will close the public hearing, and...
We did not get any written comments on Cherryland Humane Society.
We did?
We did not get any written comments on Cherryland Humane
good.
Society. Okay.
All right, well, any further discussion by the commissioners? John?
Just a question for staff on the landscaping. Is staff of the opinion that this is all reasonable, what's being proposed?
Yeah, let me look at the landscaping specifically.
I'm
So-
really just thinking about the north, frankly. Everything else is
Yeah, I think the north was where they currently have the least, because west, where they currently have all the most.
Right.
But yeah, based on what we had, and let me check, did we say specifically? They did have some existing along there,
Right.
so they just added to that, and I think they added sufficient amount based on
Okay.
what I saw.
Who owns the property to the east? That's pretty rough property, as I recall.
That is part of, I believe, the road commission, not necessarily as right-of-way, but as like an extension of their yard.
Okay, yeah, it's,
There's a few county, I think DPW owns a lot around here somewhere, so there's some county government functions in this area.
okay. Doesn't look like anybody's going to plant a house there anytime soon.
No.
I don't have any other questions.
Any other commissioners?
Let's zoom in over there.
Well, if we have no further discussion, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to direct staff to prepare findings of fact for application SUP 2001-05-A for a special use permit for the expansion of the existing Cherryland Humane Society's facility at 1050 Aberg? How do you-
1750 Alberg.
Okay, Alberg Drive, 1750 Alberg Drive for the Planning Commission's regular meeting on January 8th, 2025.
Support.
We have a motion by Robertson, support by Fudge. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same. All right. Look forward to hearing about that one at our January 8th meeting.
All right, we'll be preparing findings of fact for that meeting.
And with that, we will move on to the Cherryland PD 2024-110, Cherryland Center Comprehensive Development Plan Site Plan Review.
So this is a plan that was actually introduced at the, at your prior meeting, and this is to provide an updated comprehensive development plan for the Cherryland Center. So this is not necessarily a site plan in the terms of for a specific business, but it's an overarching plan for the Cherryland Center. So in that meeting, there were two issues that kind of were needing to be resolved. One was some of the parking standard requirements. So we have updated information from Gosling Zubek that does have the revised parking requirements and so forth. And then there was also discussion regarding the reciprocal access easement agreement, which I actually have a portion of it in the packet. I did notice that it doesn't have the highlights that I thought were in there. They were just highlighting the existing language, but I did not want to provide you with the full document. It's pretty lengthy, but that was the agreement that was established by Showstack, which was the developer of then Cherryland Mall, and then in their agreement with Sears Roebuck at the time. So in follow-up from the meeting last month, I had a couple conversations with Steve Holm, who's representing the Cherryland Center LLC, which owns kind of the non-anchor areas. So if we take out the Curling Center, which was the kind of the Kmart area, and Dr. Walls in the K1 karting, which is the former Sears area, Cherryland Center LLC pretty much owns the rest, including some of the areas like the stormwater retention area and so forth, which provide important infrastructure support for those other parts of Cherryland Center. So he's been kind of the point person in this in terms of representing the owners and some of their conversations. And we went back and kind of reviewed over the reciprocal easement agreement, and it's pointing out some of the things that we feel that are still in place and still are relevant in terms of meeting the requirements of the ordinance. We did, in our recommendation, maybe provide some reinforcement to those and referencing that they're part of this approval or recommended approval for the overall comprehensive development plan. But the plan itself is really just to provide some guidance and organization so that as there are new uses established on the site, so that there are alterations, you have a plan by which to work from. So once this is adopted, it has the potential to really be the main site plan for these other added uses that could come in. What we've been doing to date is really doing individual site plans. And so this will alleviate that, having those individual plans. This will show a complete site plan. So if there is a new use being established on this site, or potentially a new building or expansion of some sort, you can see the relationship of that impact or what that proposal is on the entire site as a whole, as opposed to just kind of looking at one portion of it. So at this point, we feel pretty comfortable with what's been presented. Again, it's a baseline. At this point, it's just essentially a existing layout of the Cherryland Center as it is to date, and it will be used for future uses or future developments. One of the things we wanted to make sure that was part of this approval too is that a recommended approval is that we want some assurances that there's going to be good flow of and access for the various uses that are part of that. There are parts of that reciprocal easement agreement where it's not really addressing some of those outlots, for instance, like the Big B Coffee or the Seven Brew, and we wanted to make sure that there continues to be access to those so that we keep this area, while it's redeveloped and repurposed and reactivated, that it's also still fits in with the concept of this kind of, no, it's not a planned shopping center per se, but this planned center as it was originally approved. Otherwise, it would require, it would create a chaotic mess because there are some landlocked parcels there. There are that don't have frontage, that don't have access, and so it's important that this be kind of that governing document to keep organization through that redevelopment and repurpose of the mall, or excuse me, the Cherryland Center.
Okay, thank you, John. Any comments or questions from the commissioners?
John, looking at the proposed usage, I see the new use area, and in parentheses, it says hotel. That's obviously for future use. Has there been a proposal for a possible hotel presented, or just?
Not at this time. Those are just conceptual and potential future
Conceptual.
uses. So they would come back and there would be an actual formal amendment to the comprehensive development plan and could include that, and we can dig in deeper at this. But at this point, it's more of an illustration of the potential. So that would not be part of the approval
Yeah.
of that.
Same with the other two areas that are listed as new use areas. The other two areas, 1 and 2.
Correct.
Okay.
Are these secondary parcels? I see the family video, that's got a whole different property ID number. Could they ever, are they locked to this parcel? So they, a future owner couldn't separate that away, and that would be the same for any of the other outlots too, is.
Well, that one's a little bit unique because half of it was part of the original Cherryland Mall property, and then it was split apart and kind of created this separate parcel. So I believe when that was originally, when the Cherryland Mall was built, there was a half of that was, I still think, a single-family home that was left at the corner there. So it was combined. So it's have this kind of half in Cherryland Center, half not. So we've been, I think at this point, for all intents and purposes, it is part of the Cherryland Center is how we see it, even though it's not under the planned shopping center zoning. From a functional standpoint, it's really tied to it.
Okay, so that's what because it looks like they're probably using the retention pond and stuff from back here, because they're all paved or building site on there. So but it's always going to be that way, though. Nobody would ever separate it.
Yeah, I mean, so look, if you look on the map there, you can see how the purple area was the original Cherryland Mall property. So, and then it was split, or combined to create that new parcel. But yeah, these are some of those gray areas where I'm not sure if there are legal arrangements between them and the Cherryland, Center LLC in terms of for stormwater arrangements and that type of thing. So.
And not only sharing stormwater, sharing parking. As you can see, it kind of blurs over that line. And a lot of parking, as you think, for that parcel, if you've gone to any of the businesses over there, and sharing an entrance kind of from here, even though this one does have its own entrance off of Woodward as well. So being party to, whether they're officially Cherryland or not, they are seemingly needing some type of agreement, because if not, they could be, like if they were shut out of the water system or stormwater system somehow, they would have to figure out how are we going to provide that on our own site? And who knows if that's currently how it's even set up. So,
In your opinion, we're all covered there.
Well,
think-
I mean, ultimately, they're responsible to meet the requirements of the
Yeah.
zoning ordinance. So
Yeah.
if there was, like Steve mentioned, if they were to shut off their stormwater, they're going to have to figure that out. I mean, they're going to have to meet that requirement. I think this gets into a really, this gray area, and I think that's where some of that lengthy conversation last month was, is that there are some things that we can do from a zoning standpoint and what we regulate, but there are other things that are really through private arrangements, whether it's easement agreements or whatever, that have to be resolved. So there's a lot of things out here that are kind of unresolved, so.
John?
Just want to clarify, it sounds like staff is of the opinion that this motion would be appropriate to be made, subject to the conditions that you've got listed, but you're satisfied that you've got what you've been looking for the last year or two?
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess maybe I was, and I would imagine that the owners will work on this eventually, in terms of updating that easement agreement. I was kind of hoping that we would have something more cleaned up at this point, just to bring it, and it's not to say that that easement agreement does not address these. It does address these items in here. And as it was originally established between Sears and Showstack, and their, subsequent owners of that are all still party to that as they assume those properties and ownership of them.
Has the applicant seen your proposed 7 conditions, and if so, are they okay with all those?
I haven't had, I've had discussion on them that these would be part of what we would be doing. And it's essentially, some of these are just echoing what's in the plan documents and in the easement agreement. So, yes.
Spoke to Steve this morning.
Go ahead and step up, if you would,
Sorry,
Bob.
Bob.
Thank you.
Sorry, Bob Rashay of Gasoline Zubac. Steve and I spoke this morning when he looked at the weather and asked me to just handle it tonight. So but he's seen it,
Fair
he's
enough.
reviewed the conditions and is aware of accepting of them, so.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
That appeared to encapsulate a lot of, at least from my perspective, that encapsulate what Planning Commission was talking about last week, or last month in the conversation.
Yeah.
And seemingly putting it in conditions, sort of, I don't know if it's sidesteps, but there was a question of sort of like do we have authority to dictate things in the reciprocal agreement that's only the party between them? In this case, well, these conditions are still relevant to the township. So however they're handled, whether it's a reciprocal easement or some other document, as long as they are handled, that takes care of what the township is looking for.
Okay.
You ready for a motion?
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that application SPR 2024-14 submitted by Cherryland Center LLC for an updated comprehensive development plan for the Cherryland Center be approved, subject to the following conditions, 1 through 7, as indicated in Planning Department Report 2024-110.
Support.
All right, we have a motion from Racine with support from Klein. Is there any further discussion?
It's just a typo. Through is misspelled, 1 through 7.
Oh, yeah, it says 1 through 7. Yep. Good catch.
Mama taught me well.
Thank you, Pat.
All right, with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same. The motion passes. Next on the agenda, we have PD 2024-105, Two Brothers Dog Park Cafe Site Plan Review.
Yeah, so as you recall, this was an item that you had in conceptual review back in June of this year, and in the conversation, part of the conversations last month, indicated that if the comprehensive development plan, the update to it is approved, that then we could move forward, at least on considering some of the expansions or alterations or changes to the footprint of the Cherryland Center. So this is similar to what was originally presented in conceptual review back in June, is for the Two Brothers Dog Park Cafe. And this is located at kind of the back corner of the former Yonker store, so it's kind of at the north point of that building. And this would be for, how we've kind of looked at this is really two uses, essentially. It's, there's the cafe in terms of providing food and drink service. And then there's the, which is, that area is roughly about 7,000 square feet. And then there's the outdoor area, which we've kind of considered, it's essentially it's accessory to that, I would say, but it's also in itself a recreational type of facility. And that's roughly about 6,000 square feet, and that's the area that is currently a parking area with maneuvering lanes that would be altered to provide that outdoor dog park activity as part of the overall development. There's also an indoor portion of the facility for kennel and grooming services. It's, we kind of assume that is minor in nature and really is accessory to the primary use. And that's about 260 square feet. So the bar, restaurant, without drive-through and recreational facility are uses permitted by right in the CP district. The CP Plan Shopping Center District requires review by the Planning Commission to ensure conformance with site plan standards and the development standards within the zoning ordinance. So it's being provided for you this evening for consideration. We went through the site development standards, both within the Article 4, Section 424, which for site plans, and Article 5, development standards, as well as the standards within the CP district. So for the most part, it met all the requirements. I know there was some of the concern that was brought up in the conceptual review related to the dog park activity that's out there. They have provided some feedback and information on that, including some letters of support from some of the neighboring uses that are in place there, including the Traverse City Philharmonic, which is located right adjacent to the subject site. They also identified the use in terms of use of the use of the site in terms of their hours of operation, which are listed there on the top of page 3 of our report, and that was just taken from the information that they provided. So it shows the limited hours, so nothing really in the evening past 8 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or in the evening of Friday and Saturday past 9 o'clock, Sunday at 6 p.m. So one of the, why there are some addressing the potential noise on the site, we also do have the township's noise ordinance, which essentially, through different limitations within that ordinance, establishes what we kind of call like a quiet period, which is 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So that would be the hours of operation here are stopped short of that, so none of them are going past 9 o'clock, so it doesn't get into that area. But there's also other provisions, should there be any issues related to noise, that could be addressed and mitigated should that arise. As I mentioned, there's a letter of support there from the Traverse City Philharmonic. We did get a letter of concern from a neighboring resident back in June on 912 North Forest Lane. I did identify where that was located, and it is a fair distance from, it's about 1,100 feet from the subject site, so I'm not sure if that would make any impact, but typically when we're concerned about noise issues, it's usually a lot closer. A lot of the other issues on the site have pretty much all been addressed in terms of meeting the requirements on the site. The parking that's been provided is adequate to meet the requirements for the use. There would be things that they would have to do on the parking lot in terms of sealing it, similar to what was done for the Traverse City Philharmonic. I did note, I was actually out on that site one evening for a complaint that we had regarding some lighting, but I did notice a couple of dumpsters out there, and I was just talking with Pat, and apparently those are for the Mexican restaurant that's in the Cherryland Center, so those will have to be addressed in some manner. And then also, there's a lighting that needs to be addressed they indicated that they are going to remove some of the non-compliant lighting, which on this site is mainly there's some lighting that's located along the sidewalk that goes along the building. Some of that will most likely be removed as if they were to build the outdoor dog park, but that's unshielded lighting. It's not say you can't have that lighting there. It's just that the type of fixtures that are there do not meet our lighting requirements. Stormwater management, there will also have to be, since they're making some alterations, will require review by the township engineer, so that will also have to be addressed. That's about all the comments I have at this point.
Molly?
Yeah, I have a question about, do we have the applicant here, or Bob, are you doing the question here? Whoever wants to do it. Okay, my question is about, so you're doing 5,000 square feet that the dogs are gonna run around in, and it's outside, and it's on blacktop. And then, how are you going to take care of cleaning that? What it says in here is it's going through the stormwater system. To me, we already have some E. coli problems in the bay, so is there a filtration system, or is there some other way we're gonna manage that?
So the outside area that's getting reconstructed is, the blacktop will be removed, and then a area of turf type of product will be installed over like a sand subbase. So when the blacktop comes off, the gravel will come out, and then a layer of sand will go down. All the stormwater from the parking lot is captured in the catch basins, and piping is reconstructed. So all that water that flows from the parking lot, there's curbing around the site reconstruction area to contain the turf. So the only, and then like solid waste in the dog area will be managed by the staff. And then, so really that just leaves liquid waste, which would be, it would be filtered through the sand. That's the intent. So there's no stormwater inlet within the turf area for rainwater to wash it into the system that would again go out to the basin and on the other part of the property. So that's.
This says you're gonna clean that twice a day, so you're gonna be running water through there to clean that. I mean, there's urine and there's solid waste and that other kind of stuff. The description I think that I saw in here somewhere was that it's going to be on blacktop. There's going to be holes drilled in the blacktop.
That was I think the concept in June. It's been a little bit more evolved, and we're not going to drill holes through the blacktop. It's just the blacktop's going to be removed and replaced with sand. So it's.
Molly, there's a detail on page C5, and then right at the top in the center, there's a detail for the canine grass. Is that what you're referring to, Bob?
Yeah, that is.
Is that a special kind
I mean, yeah, I guess.
of filtration, or what is that?
It's, so above the pavement area, that gets removed, then just, sand gets imported and then some stone on top of the grass would be
Yeah, just a couple things to add,
Sure.
if that's okay.
Yeah,
So,
Megan can.
yeah, we are also planning on limestone to neutralize the enzymes that are coming through there.
I'm sorry, if
Probably
you
say
could
your
just state your name.
Oh, sorry, I'm Megan Driver, and I'm working with the owners and founders of this. So we did also review our concept and architectural drawings from Craig from the GT Environmental Health Department. So he didn't have any concerns at that time with how we were handling the waste, and we've since improved by adding the canine grass and the limestone with the sand filtration in there. So that was all.
A question, is he, the person that you talked to at the health department, is it environmental health, or was it,
Environmental health, yes, Grand Traverse and environmental health.
okay. I saw some comments in here about, conversation about whether you could have food with dogs and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a different conversation. So we've consulted with the health department in multiple manners in order to make sure we're complying with all those guidelines.
Well, will you have to get permits from them?
Not from the health department. I'll have to double check with Eric, but when he spoke with them, basically they addressed those concerns on a need-to basis. So like there's a lot of places in town right now that will currently allow dogs. Technically, they may not be in health ordinance. We are trying to be in compliance by making sure that there's no food in the same area where the dogs will be held. So we have those separated areas. But if there was a concern from the health department, that would be a complaint we would have to address, but we don't plan on mixing those things at all at this point.
Mine is more the waste disposal.
Yeah, the waste disposal. I'm not sure, but from a permitting, you might have more info on that, but I just know how we've already reviewed our conceptual designs with the health department.
And Jennifer, you'll go through I assume our engineer will
Yeah,
probably.
they've submitted an escrow for review.
Okay, thanks.
If I could, on that very same point, I have some of the exact same questions, but correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I guess I was assuming in the recommended motion, the standard condition about all agency reviews shall be received, blah, blah, blah. That would include some agency's going to look into all this stuff, right? So we're not supposed to be the experts. Somebody's going to look at that before this thing happens.
And we typically include township engineer, even though it's not a agency, another entity working for the township. We typically include township engineer with that.
Would that cover things like the environmental health? I mean, ordinarily, I would say we should
County
hear something in
environmental.
writing from the environmental health department, not what an applicant tells us the environmental health
Right.
department tells us.
Yeah, no, typically it does not include, but I think in this case we would obviously include it.
Okay, so
So
that we can
those are
count on
reviews
that
are-
review being
Yeah.
done. Okay.
So those items are all required prior to obtaining a land use permit. So those are the responsibility of the zoning administrators to make sure that all those reviews have been provided. So your review is essentially is probably the primary one, but yes, township engineer, Metro Fire is another one that's typically done. And so we could, just for clarity's sake, we could probably, if you were to consider that as a condition, is to maybe explicitly call that out, because that isn't typically something that is required, but it probably should be clearly stated here.
And specific to this use.
Yes.
You know, it's not just stormwater. This is.
No, I'm just saying that in the environmental health part about, from the Grand Traverse County Environmental Health Department would be, included as one of those agency reviews.
So Molly, do you think it would be appropriate to add an item number 5 specific to that, or are you comfortable that item 4 as written is going to be acceptable to cover?
Well, we can extend 4 if you want, and just say specific to removal of waste, among other things, or we can have it as a 5. Sure.
Yeah, why
Put
not
it
just
in
add it as a
5.
5 and that's one, make it one
One
more
more.
explicitly clear review that we're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, my concern would be that the health department thought that stormwater management was looking at the dog waste issue, and stormwater management, our engineer, thought that the health department was, and,
Exactly.
you come back, you get a review with flying colors, and nobody's looked at it, because it is an unusual thing.
We just want to be covered.
Right. And I also spoke earlier today with the township engineer, Jennifer Graham. They received the escrow, hadn't gotten details specific to this, but was asking for, would likely need to know, is there some kind of pre-filtration for like waste like that, although that might be assuming that if there was going to be stormwater runoff into that area. So I think once we get all the details of how exactly is this going to work, I think we'll be able to provide comment, or she'll be able to provide comment to that effect.
This is perhaps more for Bob than the details for you guys, but
Yeah.
probably want to make sure that the underlying soils are conducive to the infiltration of the runoff from the dog park. Details.
Yeah.
Any further comment, or do we actually have any thoughts on that item 5, the wordsmithing of that?
I would just, I would say review and approval by Grand Traverse County Environmental Health for waste management.
With regard to the dog use
Yes,
In general.
for the dog park.
for the dog park?
For the dog park area.
Portion, yeah.
Should it reference the township engineer reviewing that as well? Or just
don't think
environmental
it-
health is the agency really?
I think that's already included.
It's
I mean,
covered.
that's standard
Implied,
practice.
yeah.
We always include
Yeah.
this, the
Okay.
engineer's review along with like
Yeah.
Metro Fire,
Mhm.
all that stuff. So this would be added number 5, review and approval by Grand Traverse County Environmental Health Department for waste management for the dog park area.
Okay.
Any further thoughts? John?
I have a few. I, like Molly, was looking at the packet, and it sounds like some of what I was looking at was maybe from June, like drilling holes, and that's all changed. In that same document, it also talked about a cement stage for live music. That's not happening, is it? That's not part of these plans, is it? I mean, I had a really hard time seeing what is and what isn't in the plan.
There is, yeah, I don't have any plans for that.
I mean, we just went through that with high tops, and I wouldn't want to somehow have slipped through the cracks approval of something that's going to lead to live music out there. I know for sure I would not like to see that.
Our intent, sorry, this is Megan Driver again. Our intent was to have live acoustic music only, so not like a full-on band for our outdoor space area, but again, following within the noise guidelines, so we would not be doing anything past the hours of operation.
Even during hours of operation, I think we got to be real careful about any outside music. Acoustic maybe is not quite as concerning as amplified, but
Yeah, I thought it was just dogs.
well, I'm looking at this
Yeah.
document from June that says they will also have a cement stage for live music. And I'm
I guess
thinking to
in the-
myself, oh, I don't know about that.
Well, that's when I looked at the site plan, I did not see anything that referenced the stage or.
There's
Elevated
there's an-
patio.
Item 16.
Right, but I didn't,
Maybe we need to explicitly say something about there's not going to be live amplified music. I don't think acoustic would be loud, but
Could be a number 6.
since you guys were here in June with a conceptual review, we had an extensive review of another project in the same mall, and we kind of got somewhat apoplectic about the noise issues, and I think in a few minutes, we're going to approve a motion that application's being withdrawn, so.
Sure. Yeah, we do not have an intention to have like a loud amplified
Yeah.
music. Acoustic is what our plan is.
Yeah, we know we're not out in the country, but by the same token, there's people who live all around there, and
Absolutely.
So then we're okay with acoustic music?
I don't know what others feel.
I think I'm fine with somebody out there strumming a guitar, but you probably aren't gonna want a drum set and, heavy metal.
Amplifiers?
As long as the amplification is within the guidelines of the ordinance.
Noise.
That's impossible to enforce. I mean,
Yeah.
who's got a meter, and are they gonna be there 24/7?
Is it gonna be amplified, or is it just gonna be somebody on a guitar? Will there be speakers and?
The intention right now is that it would be acoustic. I don't know that there would be any significant amplification at all. We don't want to spook the dogs either or cause any issues with our neighbors. So we're very aware and concerned with that as well. And so it would be similar to what we had mentioned, strumming guitar, having some, events where music is offered, but we certainly don't want it to be loud and disruptive.
I'd feel pretty comfortable if we had some specific provision talking about that.
well, I think if it would be okay with it, based on here, I would say amplified live music will shall be prohibited in the outdoor dog park area.
Live or recorded, I don't know if we have to just talk about
Yeah,
live.
I have to say
Amplified
amplified, yeah.
You want to be more specific and just say to be limited to acoustic.
Well, I think that could, I don't know how we determine, I mean, because I guess you're saying that there could have amplified acoustic music?
music. No, if we say there's no amplified, then we don't have to talk about acoustic, I
There's-
don't think. It's,
No speakers. Amplification would be no speakers, which would include acoustic. I mean, that would make acoustic okay, but you couldn't have amplified acoustic music.
No electric involved.
Could you do that, or is
speakers.
that
We don't have any concerns with that and keeping it with an acoustic limitation.
just with the
Mhm.
no speakers?
Yeah, I'll confirm with the owners, but it doesn't, yeah, to us, that does not seem to be a limitation at all. So we are okay having only acoustic unamplified with no speakers.
And then no speakers for any, I guess it's like kind of taking a step further, no speakers for any music outside or announcements or
Special
anything.
events.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And no karaoke.
Aw, really? Okay.
I don't know,
fine.
those dogs
Dog
can really carry a
dancing.
tune, though.
My dog's got a great voice, I'm saying.
You're talking about the outdoor area in reference to all of this.
Yes.
Yeah. Indoor, have your fun, and the inside,
we're talking outdoor.
outdoor. Okay.
Okay.
To clarify.
There was also something in that document that we were looking at that mentioned something about a food truck. Has the applicant been informed that we don't have food trucks in Garfield Township?
Yes.
That is outdated. We are not looking for food trucks. We are going to have our own cafe.
Okay.
There we go.
I must say, I did a little homework today, and I have kind of come around on the noise. I thought this was going to be a disaster, but in what I was finding, looks like there's an awful lot of these places that are existing in a lot of urban areas. I did think most of them look like they're in more industrial, commercial neighborhoods, but I can see in the photos some housing nearby. So it looks like it's doable, and I'll give the applicant credit. He's obviously done some homework and some research on things. There's reference to some fencing, which I guess can have some sound reducing properties, which I think is very good and very important. Not sure I see where in these documents the details for the fencing are. I saw something on C3, it's getting a little tough on my old eyes, but item 17 said fence, see foundation detail, these plans, but the size, the height, the decibel qualities of the fence, I didn't see that provided, and in some of these resource materials that were provided, it's pretty helpful, but what are we supposedly going to get?
I can address a little bit of that. We are planning on having a 7-foot tall fencing in 420-foot distance to the nearest resident. With the research that Eric had done with a decibel measurement, that it should reduce the dog noises in our area to 40 decibels or less, which is the same volume as a refrigerator hum. So we see that 7-foot tall solid fencing will have a significant impact on reducing that noise.
Can you describe the character of the fencing? Is it chain link with slats, or?
It is not chain link.
Cedar.
It's cedar, solid cedar.
Cedar's
Oh,
what
it
it
is
says,
solid cedar, okay.
but, well, where in the
So
plan? I mean,
it-
we're hearing all this stuff, but where in
Yeah,
the,
we'll need to have that added to the
we
plan.
gotta see that.
So there is, it is on the plan. It might not show up as prominently as, but it basically outlines the grass turf area.
I just can't read that stuff.
So if you go, so let's zoom into C4 if you have that. That's the enlarged plan.
And this is 4.
Is it 4 or 5 you want? 4.
I'm going to zoom out to see what they do.
Sometimes graphics, so.
Okay.
So the light green hatching represents the turf, and the line along that's got little X's on it is the fence. And there's a detail for the posts on the detail sheet that, shows that the fence posts right along, right next, up, just scroll up a little bit, Steve.
A little bit.
Yep, right there. So that, above the bike rack where your pointer is, right there, that's the grass detail.
Yep,
And so that's the
there's
the fence
in it.
posts,
I
yes.
see.
So that's the fence post. Is there something
Yep.
that shows the fence itself?
That was identified in the architectural, rendering that I thought was included, but didn't,
Maybe
Yeah.
staff had it, but I don't have
It
it.
was submitted, so this was part of the handouts that were provided on your desk.
so it'll be an attractive cedar fencing material.
Well, believe me, Bob, I'm not really quibbling with that. I just don't want us to get caught with, we approved something because we thought we saw a picture, but it's not in any of the approved documents that people that come after us are supposed to have to be able to review and enforce. That's why I want to make sure that our documents say what everybody says is what's going to happen. I like that picture. Is there a way to describe this fence so that we get what we are being shown we're getting?
Yeah, I think if we just maybe adjust the site plan a little bit to maybe show the height and maybe if we
Sure.
could have like maybe a detail on it.
Yep.
And then just maybe clarify that just so it's a little bit clearer. But yeah, we could
Yep.
have that provided right on
Yeah.
the site plan would be great.
And they referenced in their materials, the solid cedar fencing, the noise will be reduced by 6 decibels. So that must be what they're being told by whoever's providing that fence. But there again, I think that ought to be in what that's what they're representing to us we're going to get, then that's what our plans that we approve ought to say we're getting.
And then now that we're looking at it in more detail, I'm noting that in the rendering, the fence at the corner seems to step down. And I think you indicated it would be 7 feet tall. And I would assume that would be a continuous height around the perimeter. So maybe the rendering, as it's the only thing we have that we're referencing, we
Yeah.
probably want some clarification.
We can do that. I think the rendering came before the site plan, so.
I understand.
And then you know how it is with architects and their material specs, and so.
I'm intimately familiar, Bob.
So we're going to be adding a condition, we've already talked about adding as 5, the environmental health. We're going to add something about,
Yeah, so I can review, I got 3 that I would suggest.
okay,
I would add 5 to say, review and approval by the Grand Traverse County Environmental Health Department for waste management for the dog park area. Amplified music and other sound shall be prohibited in the outdoor dog park area. And then number 7 would be clarify fence description on the site plan, including height, materials, and location.
one last thought, and that is hours of operation. I see it's represented in your report, what they're going to be. Is it represented in any of the binding documents?
No. I mean, that was, we could, we could incorporate that as part of that. I mean, it's part of their application, so. I mean, but it'd probably be best if there are concerns about that, is to actually include that it's best to include it on the site plan. Because that's generally what you're including. So I would say inserting the hours of operation as presented on the site plan.
And
May I ask a question regarding that? We do have some considerations for doing seasonal adjustments, like having potentially different hours, like shorter hours in the winter and longer hours in the summer, not beyond what we've listed. That would be the latest that we would be open. But just, I didn't want to be bound to a specific set of days and times if we wanted to make seasonal adjustments to that.
Okay. So you're talking about shorter hours?
Shorter hours, yes.
Yeah.
Potentially in the wintertime, depending on, several factors, but, it would be preferable if we had a range of hours that, the earliest and the latest, so that we can be flexible within that.
Yeah, looking at the report, it sounds like if it said that the hours will not begin earlier than 9 in the morning and they won't continue beyond 9 PM, that
Correct.
sounds like that fits
That's
within your
perfect. Yep.
parameters. How do you
Yeah.
guys feel about that?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm fine. I don't think it's a maximum, not a,
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we weren't bound to like
Yeah.
a very specific schedule.
We won't make you stay open.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hate to look like we're nitpicking, but this stuff is important. The day after this permit is approved, you could sell this business, and we got total strangers that we got to deal with, and they don't know what you guys are saying and what we're talking about tonight, so it's important to button it down.
We say approvals run with the land.
John, did you have anything else?
I think that covered the topics that have crossed my mind so far.
Okay. Is there anyone else who had any questions or concerns?
I'll make a comment. I thought it was crazy when I first heard about it, but I have talked to a lot of people and they're saying, oh, that's so cool. You know,
There's one in the area, I didn't get a chance to really research, but I think it's out by the ballpark in Blair. Has anyone been to that or know about it?
K&A.
Yeah. Have you've been to it?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
many times.
All right.
is it enjoyable?
Pardon?
Enjoyable?
Absolutely, the beer's cold.
Did your dog?
But how does your dog feel about it, most
Great.
importantly? Okay.
There's always lots of dogs there.
You know, I see one little thing that you guys maybe ought to clear up. You got Monday and no Tuesday. If I were you guys, I'd go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, in case you want to stay open. And you don't have to, but right now would be the time to throw the Tuesday in there.
Yeah, we're considering our staffing and hours of operation and staffing concerns and things of that nature. So we're just initially planning as a soft launch to have a closing on Tuesday, and also seasonally. We may extend those hours definitely based on demand. Extend the days, not the hours.
Well, I would put it on here now then.
Well, I thought we're just going to talk about it won't be before 9 in the morning.
Right,
it
but,
won't be after 9 at night.
okay, so
Doesn't
you're
matter
not
what
gonna
days.
put this on the days?
They're closing on Tuesday.
Yeah, so this is
You
what
don't
I
need-
was
you
getting
don't
at,
need
that
to
they
say
ought to clear
that.
this up right now. They're gonna be open till 9 PM on Friday and Saturday, but they're 8 to 11 till 8, or Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I was suggesting they would, in case they
Yeah.
decide they want to change, they ought to do it right now.
We appreciate that. I think that's the main reason we want to just be specific with a range of hours and not be really specific about days or times that we will or will not be open, so that we have the flexibility to adjust with our staffing needs.
Yeah, so
Makes sense.
I suggest it's, as condition number 8, hours of operation on any day shall be no earlier than 9 AM, nor later than 9 PM.
Sounds fine to me.
Okay.
It's fine.
I have one question on that. We do have the kennel area, we've talked about doing a doggy daycare with a drop-off happening earlier than that. So it wouldn't be open for general business, for cafe areas, but, people being able to drop off their dogs earlier in the day. Just want to make sure that that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility when we talk about, like, we'll have one area of the business being open slightly earlier than the open to the public piece of that. I just want to be restricted in that way and see what your thoughts are.
John, Molly, are we really talking about the outdoor dog park operation?
That's really what I'm focusing on, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe
Could that
maybe
clarify
add
in
I'd
that
be okay with
clarification.
limiting what you just wrote there, John, to the outside dog park area.
Okay.
Which is to say that if you were to have the, because there is an interior dog area as well,
Yeah.
right? So I think that it would be written in such a way that the interior dog area and the interior functions could be open outside of the areas that we're comfortable having the exterior dog park open. Is that what I'm understanding?
I'm all right with that.
Thank you.
Well, what else we got, folks?
Are there other topics that we haven't thought to quiz everybody about?
John, you want to read off our additional conditions?
So in addition to, as presented in the report, conditions 1 through 4, there will be 4 additional ones. Condition number 5, review and approval by the Grand Traverse County Environmental Health Department for waste management for the dog park area. Amplified music and other sound shall be prohibited in the outdoor dog park area. Clarify fence description on the site plan, including height, materials, and location. Hours of operation on any day shall be no earlier than 9 AM nor later than 9 PM for the dog park area.
Can you talk about the fence again, read that back?
Well, he's provided some stuff, so I was just going to say clarify fence description on the site plan, including height, materials, and location.
Clarify to
Well,
staff's approval, or I mean?
well, we have, we do have some requirements in our zoning ordinance, so in terms of what they can do, unless there was a specific minimum or something that you would prefer to see. I mean, you can,
Yeah, I think the ordinance talks about chain link fence. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the fence that was talked about by the applicant.
yeah, I think it was just, I think,
Which mitigates the sound of the, yeah.
And sights and everything else. It's
Okay.
cedar, it's opaque, and
so I thought there was reference to the cedar on the plan.
Is
That's
it,
on one of those pages?
is it finished on the inside and the outside?
I don't have any,
Our
Specific
zoning ordinance
reference to
always
the
requires the finish on the outside.
I think Bob thought that the fencing might be in the architectural plans, but I don't know if you guys have the architectural plans. We don't.
So then we should probably specify that, provide a fence description on the site plan as a 7-foot fence.
7-foot solid cedar fencing.
Sounds good. It leaves, for the staff review, it narrows it to what you're expecting to be,
To achieve the
yeah.
thing that it's supposed to achieve with the sound mitigation and
Yeah.
other mitigation of
Yeah.
external effects.
Okay, hold on a second, I gotta redo this one.
Are you ready?
I think so. As soon as John, you got a motion for it, or rather, item 7.
I think it's
Yeah.
8.
Yeah, let me just, 8, I think we're good, I just, 7,
7.
yeah. What's it,
Our report also does say 1 thorough for, same thing.
Spell check.
We need grammar check though, because spell check, that is a word, so spell check does not catch that, no.
You have to
I
be
propose
thorough.
Grammarly, if
7.
you've never tried it. It's pretty amazing.
We do need, we could use Grammarly on this probably, yes. Mm-hmm.
So how about clarify fence description for a solid, for a 7-foot solid cedar fence, including height, materials, and location for sound mitigation of the dog park area. Let me read that again. Clarify fence description for a 7-foot solid cedar fence, including height, materials, and location for sound mitigation of the dog park area.
What do we think?
I'm assuming we're not going to see this back again, so after we approve it,
Correct.
it's up to the
Yeah.
Would anyone, any more further discussion, or are we ready to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that application SPR 2024-16 submitted by Eric Engel for a bar and restaurant without drive-through and recreational facility on parcel 05-014-049-08 located at 1776 South Garfield Avenue be approved subject to the following conditions 1 through 8 as indicated in PD 2024-105.
All right, do we have a second?
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Agustinelli and a second by Klein. Is there any further discussion?
Just clarification, I think the motion said conditions 1 through 8 in the report, and the report's got 1 through 4, and then tonight we've just added 4 more.
I'll defer to your language, so put it in there.
You could just say 1 through 4 as indicated in PD report and as discussed at the meeting on today's date.
As altered or adjusted.
Yeah, or as
Additional
amended.
conditions 5 through 8.
Yeah, and 5 through 8 as
Yeah.
added through discussion at planning commission meeting. Yeah.
Okay, you guys are taking the minutes on that, so.
I think you can just say as discussed, conditions 5 through 8.
As discussed, 5 through 8.
We'll review the minutes at the next meeting, just to clarify we got the motion
Sure it's all
correctly.
in there.
Gonna look.
All right, any further discussion? All right, well, all those in favor of the motion, woof or aye as appropriate? Aye? Any opposed? The motion passes. All right, well, Eric, thank you for joining us remotely, and thank you very much for your time tonight. And we'll move on to our second to last agenda item, PD 2024-111-K1 Speed High Top Site Plan Review Amendment Withdrawal.
So we received the letter enclosed in your packet from Phil Beeler, who had the application for the High Tops Bar, Restaurant, and Nightclub at the former Sears building there, kind of at the rear side of the K1 Speed Indoor Kart Racing Facility. So as similar to previous practice, we typically, when somebody submits a request to withdraw the application, is an acceptance by the Planning Commission. It's being presented to you this evening for consideration.
Anyone like
Make a
to make
motion that the withdrawal of application SPR 2022-21-A for the High Tops Bar, Restaurant, and Nightclub by Phil Beeler be accepted.
Support.
We have a motion by Racine, support by Fudge. All those in favor, any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, same? Motion passes. And with that, we will move on to our final piece of unfinished business. PD 2024-112, North Tower Wireless Communication Facility SUP, updated site plan.
So, this application had been tabled a few months in a row, and last month was when it needed to have some sort of movement on it to keep the application from expiring. They indicated, since the original application proposed a location for the tower that was not going to be compatible with setbacks, specifically 4 towers in the supplemental regulations in Article 7. They have since proposed a different location, which I believe is in the packet. So they had started with, there are a few pages here. They had started with just a sketch that was presented last meeting, and we're working on updated drawings, which the set of drawings has been provided in the packet. Staff took a look, and I wanted to see the height of the tower was as it was previously, was 155 feet. The updated drawings show that it will be at least 244 feet away from the existing house and at least 160 feet away from the nearest property line to the south, which is the nearest property line anywhere. So it is now at least the height of the tower setback from the things that it needed to be set back from. So it appeared to address the concerns that were previously brought up. And so the report actually kind of goes back to the introduction, and it's almost a reintroduction of the application now that that has been proposed in a different location. There's, I think, only the drawings. I asked if they had any updated, any of the other application materials, which we didn't put everything from that packet. We put some of the things that were referenced, but a lot of things did not change in terms of the macro level of analysis on how they selected the site and things like that. But otherwise, at least from staff's perspective, this seems to address the concerns that had previously been raised. If there are any additional concerns, to discuss them, and if not, the draft motion is to set a public hearing for January for this application.
What does the planning commission think? Any thoughts, comments?
No, I think it's quite an improvement.
Just one question, I guess. On page 5 of your report, you mentioned with the setbacks that the setbacks are minimums, and if there's a need for public safety reasons for more, we could talk about that. Does staff see any reason why we would want more than what's required as the minimum in this case?
Not specifically. I think we wanted to at least reference what that provision, we kind of just walked through every provision that was in that section, and given how tall it is, I guess if there were a shorter tower and it happened to be closer to something else, if there were concerns, that seems, it seemed to us that this was adequate, and now pushing it further back, it's further off of the right-of-way, it's behind this house, so it seemed to address the things that everyone was concerned with, including staff, so.
Okay.
As I recall, there was a lot of the prior concern was related to the pole being too close to the house.
Yeah.
Remind me, does that also include the pole barn? And is there any concern there, or is its distance from the pole barn adequate?
I think it was, let's see, in addition to complying with,
See, we're clear back here now.
Mm-hmm.
We were up here before.
I thought we were up here before.
We were right.
in addition to complying with A above, antenna supporting structures must also be set back a distance equal to their overall height from the lot line of any lot that contains a residential use that is vacant but may be used for residential purposes, or is that within a residential zoning district. I don't remember specifically if it included the pole barn or not. Like I said, is a building that would not have residential use. The site would. I also don't know if it might actually be at least 155 feet from that corner of the pole barn. We can measure it on the scaled plan to clarify.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm satisfied with that. I mean, we're
Okay.
merely going to a public hearing,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
that was the only, I think, clarification. As we were thinking back to when we first looked at this,
Correct. Yeah.
that was my thought, because
Mhm.
I remember that being a concern.
Yeah.
Any other concerns of the commissioners? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion on application SUP 2024-02, submitted by North Tower Development LLC. Excuse me, for a special use permit for a wireless communication facility at 2767 Zimmerman Road on a portion of parcel 05-019-001-000, be scheduled for a public hearing at the January 8th, 2025 Planning Commission regular meeting.
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Fudge and support by Augustinelli. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same. Motion passes.
All right.
And with that, we will move on to new business, of which there is none, and then open it up to public comment.
We have one member of the public still here.
Hello, panel.
Hello, public.
I'm David Williams, 4416 Cedar Run. I'm wondering if you learned any information about the proposed housing development on Cedar Run, the former Traverse Seed Light and Power property, the fly ash dump, as it's oftentimes known as. It was in the Record Eagle this morning, and I just wondered if any of you are aware of it, or if you have any information that you could.
Not come to us.
Yeah, we also read it in the paper this morning.
Yes.
Yeah, we have not received any application to that effect from that developer. We can try to track down, we can at least track down Light and Power and contact them and say, can you put us in contact with this developer? If they have ideas, they need to first bring to staff so we can do a completeness review, talk to them, do a pre-app meeting before it even gets introduced to Plan Commission. And it would be coming to Plan Commission if it even were to be considered.
I
So,
see.
Yep.
I wasn't sure if you had learned anything since
Yeah,
this
we had,
morning.
not since this morning, yeah, but yeah, that is a follow-up that needs to happen. So.
David, I'm not sure when you stepped into the meeting, but I too live on Cedar Run.
Yes.
4013.
Yes.
And I asked the same question because I was surprised by what I read in the paper that sounded like it was a somewhat vetted development plan. And I was surprised that John and Steve had not heard anything from the developer. So.
Yes, I was surprised as well, and just thought you may have learned something between 7 o'clock this morning and now. Mm.
Generally, they come to us with their plans.
Typically, and yeah, Light and Power, we've known about that property because it's been out there sort of as a concept. I know earlier in the year they were tossing out ideas for using it for park purposes. There is concern about the contamination on the site. That would be one of my first questions is no matter what it is, a park or residential, what's happening with the contaminated area and how's that being contained or remediated?
The property is zoned agriculture, so that's kind of a minimum lot size of 1 acre. But it's planned for low-density residential, so 1 to 3 units an acre. They could potentially look at something like plan unit residential development. There's maybe some options in there, but I guess we'll see.
That's what was mentioned in the paper, was they were maybe do a PURD.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, just a guess, but the potential applicant may not have come to the township yet, because what was news was that Light and Power sounds like, okay, we're willing to do a deal like this, but
Right.
the applicant probably doesn't want to spin his wheels with us when they don't have any standing until they know they're gonna get it.
I see.
And since Light and Power is also a public entity, in this case, the seller happens to also be a public entity, and so their meeting would also have been a public thing that would have been covered, so sort of the unique situation of that.
Yes, I wasn't sure if that property actually belongs to the city of Traverse City, which happens to be in Garfield Township. And that's why there may have been some confusion about
Yeah,
this.
it's, Light and Power is like, it's a arm of the city in a way.
It's a separate entity, but it's totally controlled by the city, but I
Yeah.
think it's Light and Power that actually owns
It's
it.
Light and
Light
Power
and
is
Power owns
listed,
it.
yeah.
see.
Mhm.
Well, I was kind of under the impression that they're almost taking bows for the project being a done deal today, and I thought, if we're all learning about this now, it seems
Well.
surprising.
Well, like you, we look
Yeah.
forward to the opportunity either for staff to review it if it falls under that review, or for it to come before this planning commission.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
With no other public to make comment, we'll move on to other business, our 2025 meeting schedule. Is that at the very end of the packet? Last page.
Proposed along the same pattern of second and fourth Wednesdays of the month. 12 regular meetings, 10 study sessions, skipping the November and December for purposes of holidays. Also proposed at 7 PM, if Plan Commission is okay with that, or if anyone wants to move it up to 6:30 or 6.
How about 4:30?
Yeah, there we go, 4:30, the earliest meeting in Garfield.
Retired yet, Bob?
We are contemplating too that the potential for another joint meeting between the town board and planning commission. We've typically used one of your study sessions either at the end of February or March. So there wouldn't be any changes. The only thing to that would be as kind of a compromise with the township board, since they start their meetings at 6, that it would be a study session that would probably start at 6 on that day to.
At least one of them would be at
So
6.
similar to what we've had previous joint meetings between the township board and the planning commission.
Do we need a motion on this?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the planning commission meeting dates and times as suggested in agenda item 9A.
Support.
Motion by Racine, support by Robinson. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same. Motion passes.
Do you want to forward one of those, either February or March, as an idea to the township board for a joint meeting?
Personally, I'm probably going to be out of town in March. I think I missed the joint
Okay.
meeting last year because of that, and I kind of hope to be gone for March. So if there's a way we could pick a study session that's not the one in March,
Okay,
I'd be happier with that, but I'm only one of 7, but
yeah.
If I recall, I think it was at the end of March, and that fell on TCAP's spring break
Mm-hmm.
last year.
Might have had several of us gone.
Looks like it does this year too, probably.
Yeah, the 26 would.
Mm-hmm.
could we do the February one?
Yes.
We can
yeah.
propose that, so, yeah.
And we haven't really set this in stone yet. We're just trying to, there might, it seems like it's been beneficial to have that communication between the town board and the planning commission. I mean, quite honestly, it could be pushed to April as well. Doesn't have to be winter, that type of thing.
Okay.
So we could look at February and as an alternate, April.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
Okay, very good. Well, with that, I guess what are our items going to be for the next agenda in January?
In addition to follow up from some of these items, there's a couple of applications that we received, we're reviewing, we might need some additional information, so they might make it to January or not. The other kind of business item would be election of officers, so thank you for stepping into the chair for this meeting at least, but also our chair.
I tried to do a poor job so that you would eliminate me from.
Sorry, you did a wonderful job.
You did good, Chris.
Yeah.
Nobody woofed.
Showing up, that's all it takes.
That was a nice touch. I like
It's a low bar, right, Bob?
Yeah.
I like the wolf suggestion. It was a nice touch. So, yeah.
I would like to mention that we have been in conversation with, as you know, TJ Maxx relocated to the former Bed Bath & Beyond location over on 31. So there's that space is available, and there's a retail outlet that wants to go into that location. A couple of things that would be different that would alter that space is to create an outdoor entrance to that. And TJ Maxx is kind of one of those, I would call it almost like a mini Anchor. It's not the same size or scale as a Target or Macy's, but it is a little bit bigger than the typical stores. But the other part that they are requesting is that it be closed off to the interior portion of the mall. So a little concerned about that. Cherryland Center previously was Cherryland Mall. It was an enclosed mall, and then when they did convert it to the center, did a complete revision of the entire thing. So I think that our concern would be that if this were permitted, where does that, are we going to expect others to occur of that nature? So that would be kind of our concern. I don't know if we can really necessarily prevent that, although I would say one of the ways that we could be addressing it is from the exterior entrance, and why, if we would be permitting that without having some sense of how this fits to their overall plan that Brookfield has for the property. So
What would the reasons be for that, John? Why would they not want the traffic and exposure through the mall?
it's a good question. The only thing I can
Theft, I mean, that's,
Could be
Yeah,
security.
it could be the way to
Shoplifting.
limit the access point of customers coming into that location to
Yeah.
just one entryway. Sometimes some of these retailers are not necessarily accustomed to being in enclosed malls, since there's fewer malls out there now, and so it may just be the way their corporate model, prototype or whatever, and are not really accustomed to being in part of an enclosed mall. We've asked them that they reach out to Brookfield and kind of maybe give us, what their thoughts are on this. Obviously, are they, like I said, I think probably our concern is just similar as to Cherryland Center, that it function in a way that makes sure that those uses are productive and are not negatively impacting other uses or the operation of that site. It was approved as a as a mall or a planned shopping center, it needs to function in some form of that, unless there is a plan to completely redo it, which we would be always open to, whether it's to convert it to something similar like the Cherryland Center or something completely different. But most importantly, because there's so much going on a site like that, and it's not conventional in terms of property boundaries and all that type of thing, we need to have some mechanism and some assurances that things are going to be coordinated. So we'll see. We have not submitted an application yet, but we'll see.
If they do, would that come to us?
Yes, yeah,
They
because
can
it's
upset
planned
their
shopping.
neighbors before they ever move in.
It's planned shopping center, so similar to stuff that goes on in Cherryland. It all has to be, all site plans have to be reviewed by the planning commission.
And if there starts to be more development like that, where there's like little pieces of it, there might need to be a comprehensive development plan for that mall as well.
Well, and as far as I'm aware, Macy's is still shutting its doors at the end of the year, right?
That's what we're expecting, yes.
Um,
Yeah. From our understanding, the property has been sold, so,
The Macy's property.
correct.
yeah.
So there's essentially, Brookfield owns the mall with the exception of 3 areas, the Target, the Penny's, and the Macy's, which are separate parcels,
Mhm.
parking lots included.
There is someone taking over the Macy's, John?
Yes,
It's like a different, like leasing, it's still like a real estate entity. Yeah, it wasn't like a corporate entity for a specific retailer, but like a real estate
it's a
leasing
commercial
agent.
real estate company that purchased
Yeah.
it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we'll be getting started with a lot to do in January.
Yep.
So, well, I look forward to seeing everybody in 2025. Does anybody would like to,
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
thank you, Bob. We're adjourned.